Hi, everyone. Welcome to Worldly Experience. My name is Jackie Sieber. I am a college student at University of Pittsburgh, majoring in media and professional communications. And today I am talking to Mark Barash, who is a TV, radio, digital, and cable executive producer who started his career at the odd age of 14. But look at him now. He's a motivational speaker. He's toured around the country. And if you heard what we were just talking about, he also met Muhammad Ali and got to interview him. So we're just going to talk about his daily tasks as an executive producer, what he does, and some advice that he can give to us students and anyone watching. So thank you for tuning in, Mark. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you. It's good being here.
Yeah, great. So we were talking about you met Muhammad Ali, and it kind of ties in with our first question. What does your average day look like? Do you talk to famous world champions like almost every day, or was that just an occurrence? Like, what do you do?
It kind of depends on the time period and the place that you're asking about. Interviewing athletes started when I was about 9 or 10 years old. In fact, one of the favorite interviews that I did was at age 13 or 14, and that was done at Yankee Stadium in New York. And it was my first, and it was sort of weird, but it was fun, weird. There was a pitcher on the Yankees named Sparky Lyle, and he was a favorite of every Yankee fan. He was one of the best relief pitchers in baseball history, and he played for the Yankees. And I had an opportunity to meet him one day while I was at Yankee Stadium. And it was Sparky Lyle here, and then it was me next to him, and a bunch of New York Yankees all the way down the dugout. There was probably 20 other players all the way down the dugout. And I took my tape recorder, and I took my pad of paper, and I went up to Sparky Lyle, a bit nervous. This guy was, big time in baseball. And I went to him. I said, Sparky, can I ask you a few questions? He said, yeah, go ahead, sure. And I said, okay. Sparky, there's been a lot of controversy about whether relief pitchers should be starting pitchers on the All-Star game or whether they should be only starting pitchers. And he said to me, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, do you think you should be on the All-Star team? You haven't been picked because you're a relief pitcher as opposed to a starting pitcher. Do you think you should have been on the All-Star team this year? And he looked at me and he said, oh, F the All-Star game. And he had the whole dugout hysterically laughing at this 14-year-old kid who is now being embarrassed by one of baseball's great players. But it made for such a good story that I go tell it around everywhere I go around the country. I tell that story about how Sparky Lyle said the F word in front of me, a 14-year-old kid, and not appropriate, Sparky, but we all took it in stride and had fun with it. But you asked about my daily day when I was broadcasting and when I was interviewing and doing all the things that broadcasters and sportscasters do. I would get up early in the morning, see what happened overnight from the games that I was covering, depending on where I lived at the time. We can talk about Detroit, where I lived for a couple of years. And I was the sportscaster for the CBS station in Detroit. So I'd get up every morning. I'd look at what happened the night before. If I wasn't at the game, I found out all the things there was needed to find out about the game. I would look about anything special in the game that I could maybe have fun with and use in my sportscast. And then, of course, there was the dinner hour that came, and then you're right back at it again. You're out at the stadium, you're covering the ball game, you're covering the ball player, and you're having fun, enjoying what you got into sportscasting for, and that is the love of baseball.
So I have a few questions. One, were you nervous when you were about to interview the guy that said F the All-Stars? Like, were you worried about like your appearance or anything? Because I just interviewed, he's a SoundCloud rapper. His name is Young Gravy. I don't know if you heard.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, no, he's a classic. But I interviewed him about last week and I was so nervous talking to him, even though my questions were so stupid. I asked him because he has like a fan base called Gravy Train. I was like, "Do you have a gravy boat by chance?" And he's like, "Actually, I do." And I was like, "All right, that's it." Um,
That one I
but
see, yep.
yeah. So were you ever nervous about interviewing these people?
A lot of times I was nervous, yeah. And I don't know why, they're not any bigger or more important than I was or anybody was that went to talk to them. But sometimes you'd get some really good answers from some thought out ball players who were really kind of wanting to give you a dialogue and not just say, oh, F the All-Star game. And but sometimes it backfires. And I will tell you now the number one reason why I got out of sportscasting and into other areas of broadcasting. And it involved a ball player, all-star ball player by the name of Lou Whitaker. And Lou Whitaker played for the Detroit Tigers, and he played for them for probably about 10 years. And Lou and I knew each other because I was interviewing him when the ball games were happening at Tiger Stadium. He'd go out for pregame warm-up and so forth, and I'd go out and interview him, and everything was great, and everything was clear. Well, one day my television station said, you got to go to Detroit tonight. And what we need you to do is get an interview with Lou Whitaker because he's been named to the All-Star game. He's been named to the All-Star team, and we'd love you to go interview him and talk about that. And I said, well, it's kind of late here. It's 4 o'clock. I can't get to the game. They're in Chicago, by the way, that night. So I said, I can't get to Chicago by 5 o'clock and get the information on the satellite for you to do your stories tonight. I can't do it. It's not going to happen. They said, well, nevertheless, you got to go try. So I ran home, filled a suitcase full of stuff that I was going to need because they said, stay with the team. You're going to want to be with them for the next week. So I grabbed all my stuff, put it in my bag, and I headed out for the airport. I had a cameraman next to me, and I'm dragging him by his wire. The camera wire and me are now connected because I need him to come quickly and not lag around. So I'm doing that, and he's trying to keep up with me. We get on the plane, we go to Chicago, we land in Chicago, and the first thing that happens is I go ahead and ask the taxi driver to please let me off here in front of the press gate. Don't take me around the other end of the stadium. I need to be at the press gate. He said, okay, no problem, no problem. He said, get in. So I got in, and he's taking me to the press gate now. All the way around the stadium, taking me to the press gate. I didn't need to go that far. I told him I wanted to be right here. Nevertheless, he took me around. So I am now in the Tiger dugout with my suitcase, and the cameraman has his camera stuff, and we're ready to go interview Lou Whitaker. And I look around the field, and I say, where's Lou? For gosh sakes, I need to get him real quick. Where is he? And I'm looking around, and I can't find him. And I said, oh boy, if I can't interview him now, I'm never going to get him. So I looked around a little bit, and finally, over by the backstop where the ball players were playing pepper, here he was, Lou Whitaker, my assignment for the day. The only thing I needed to do that day was to interview Lou Whitaker. So I see him over there, and I say, come on, guys, we'll go over there to interview. And we set up now a little camera. Lou Whitaker is talking to some young ladies. And I say, Lou, oh, I am so tired. We've been running since we left Detroit. And we came here today to get an interview with you on what it feels like to be named to the All-Star game again. And he said, I'm not talking. And I said, Lou, no, really, I'm on a deadline here. I got like a half an hour to get this on and get it in the satellite. And could you help me out here real quick? He said, I'm not talking. And I said to myself, what do I do? I have traveled all the way from Detroit to Chicago to get an interview, a 2-minute interview with Lou Whitaker, and he is standing me up. He's not talking. So I say one more time, Lou, please, I just ran here from Detroit. I just got here. You see my luggage is right here. I didn't even go to the hotel yet. All I need you to do is for 1 minute, tell me what it feels like to be in the All-Star game. And he's giggling with the little girls up there in the area behind home plate. He's laughing and giggling at them. And finally, he looks at me and he says with the meanest voice and a tone and a voice you could possibly imagine, you didn't hear me. I'm not talking.
Oh my God.
I would feel like slithering away at that point. So I said, okay, thanks very much. And I walked away with my cameraman, and we tried to find somebody else to interview on that night. Fortunately, I did, but it was not Lou Whitaker.
I would have cried.
I
I
thought
would have
about
cried.
that. I thought about that. But that's what some of the things you have to face sometimes. That kind of crazy day and crazy night. But it made for a story that I could use to help people understand what some ball players are all about. And it's not being nice.
Yeah. Did you learn from that experience that you have to mentally prepare yourself for anything to happen? Because I feel like it's like, I feel like interviewing is very similar to working in the food industry or hospitality service. It's like you don't know what you're going up against. So you just have to like really like give yourself a pep talk before entering your shift. Would you say that's similar to be like interviewing?
I would say you need to be prepared anytime you walk out that door to be prepared for the kind of thing that might happen to you on that day. And a lot of times, Jackie, you have to make things happen. You just can't walk out your door and go, oh, what's going to happen to me today? You have to walk out your door in the morning and say, what can I make happen for me today? And I find that that's a much more positive way about going about things. So as I explained, yes, anything can happen on any given day, but I have to have a plan B or a plan C to make sure I'm able to do my job that day.
Would you say that's your main ways of preparing you for this work?
To just kind of plan in my head what I want to do that day, or is there something else?
Um, yeah, like planning, or is there other aspects that you look into to like mentally prepare yourself?
Yeah. Well, you have to kind of be ready for anything, and you have to understand too that the clock works against you many times, and you can't necessarily count on things going to the schedule that you would like them to go to. It's a very, very difficult kind of thing to deal with when the timing could belong to everybody but you. And so, yeah, clocks were important, time was important, but in television and radio, it is much more important than in any other business. I tell people that you can go ahead with your television and radio day, and you can go ahead and again, live by the clock. But if you live by the clock, you die by the clock. And in broadcasting, you can't do it over. Once you have done what we need to do for that day, which could have been an interview, could have been an editorial, a commentary, once you've done it, it's done. You can't do it again. And I tell people that accountants, boy, if you're an accountant, you get to take your pencil out and you get to erase what you did and fix the mistake. When you're in broadcasting, there are no erasers. You cannot fix mistakes. You just have to live with what you did. And next time, be more prepared.
Sounds scary. um, so that was very, very helpful because I feel like, in this digital age, we can get away with, editing things out if we're doing a recorded interview. So personally, I would say I'm not as used to interviewing on the fly, but I'm sure that when I do get into this industry, because this is what I want to do, I really have to like get my improvisational skills in and just like really like fake it until I make it. Or just be as confident as ever and just own my mistakes. What are some obstacles that you had to overcome to get to where you are right now?
Well, I guess the first one in kind of a broad sense was an obstacle that people didn't believe. I was 14 years old and was doing play-by-play for a professional sports team and was doing sports reporting for a network affiliate broadcaster and doing all kinds of different things that guys 15 years old don't get to do. You get to watch from afar, and you're not allowed to get over there. The reason I got into broadcasting, I sat next to my friend and we looked down at the very bottom of the arena, and I said, who gets to sit down there? It was the greatest seats in the world. And my friend said, I think that's just for the media. And I said, well, then I'm going to get just in the media. And I did. And that's kind of the fun thing that started out my career, was to make a goal that I was going to get to be media, and I was going to get to be television and radio, and I was going to get to sit in the best seats in the house. And that's what started my impetus to want to be in broadcasting, be a broadcaster.
Was it lonely starting at age 14 just to already have a job and being aired on 2 radio stations while it seems like other kids are just doing regular teen activities?
Kid stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it lonely? Yes, and that's a good question, because it turns out that loneliness actually was the impetus to me doing something that I never thought I could do. And frankly, I don't think 99.9% of the kids out there could do. And what happened was, I developed a sports paper in Long Island called New York Ball, and it covered all sorts of New York sports. And it was something that I put together with no knowledge on how to put together a publication, a sports publication. I learned on the fly. I talked to the kids that were in the high school newspaper club, and doing all kinds of things to get this newspaper online and get it. Well, there was no online then, I should say, but to get this newspaper out there. So I decided I was going to print this paper, and I decided that when I went to these games, I don't have a car. How am I going to get to these games? I don't know how to drive. How am I going to get to these games? And what I did was, I'd take a kid and I'd say, come on in the car. You got a car? Yeah. Okay. You drive me to the arena tonight. So the kid would drive to the arena. I'd give him a ticket. He'd go watch the game. I'd get to the game on time and do my work for the night. But again, getting back to whether it was lonely, it was very lonely. I'm sitting there on press row, the press seats, with guys that are 60 and 50 and 70 and 75. And they are professional broadcasters and professional writers. And here I am sitting next to them in the middle of the biggest market in the country, New York City. And I'm sitting next to the Daily News and the New York Times and all of the big newspapers in New York. And I decided that I needed to get someone to help me. I couldn't be on all these media things without somebody helping me with the jobs that had to be done. So my best friend at the time was a guy named Richard Gelfond. And Richard, being my best friend, got the opportunity to sit in the press seats because I was a media guy, and I could finagle that Richard could sit next to me in the media seats, and I did. And he got a big kick out of that. He really did enjoy it. And it caused me to want to do more. So I did for Rich even more. I allowed him, or I made it so that he could sit in wherever we went, he could go to the game with me. And that made me not be so lonely, because I had my best friend sitting next to me at all the games I wanted to go to. The thing that I want to tell you that is sort of the wraparound to this story is my friend Richard. You may be familiar with his work. Richard is the CEO and COO and the managing partner of a group called IMAX Theater. So he was the guy that I picked to kind of help me with all these projects, and he had no experience, never did any of this stuff like me. I had never done any of that stuff. So together, we put it together and we worked real hard, and we got ourselves our publication, and we got ourselves on radio and newspaper, and we got ourselves doing all these great things. And it was me and Richard Gelfond from IMAX Theaters. I'm very proud of him. He went on to law school and did amazing things, as you know.
So this guy, you're like, hey, let's go watch a game, became the CEO. That's just so, my God. Like, how did he land that job?
That's a good question. Like I said, we didn't know anything about newspapers, so we went to the newspaper club in high school, and we said, tell us what you know about printing papers. And they did. And so other kinds of things that we just didn't know how to do, we'd ask. And we try to get better and better. One of the newspaper writers in New York got a paper of ours one night. We put him out on the press table before a game. And I heard him talking to another writer. And that's when the newspaper was plopped down in front of them. And the guy said to the other one, he said, "I'm not reading that piece of newspaper until they learn how to spell." We were just high school kids, and our spelling was probably as good or bad as anybody's out there. But he was angry that we could put out a sports paper and make a lot of spelling errors.
And you're like, yeah, and what are you gonna do about it? Wow. Do you think that you've inspired, like, do you think like just taking him to that game has helped him reach this position as CEO and a millionaire?
A zillionaire, more like it.
Zillionaire.
I think that Richard was very motivated from the start. When he heard my idea and heard what I was trying to do, he jumped on the bandwagon right away, saying, "This is cool. I really want to do this. It's going to be great for both of us." And Richard went on to take that philosophy, go to law school, get his law degree, and start to run a company. That's how you learn the good and bad parts of business.
Wow. What are your favorite parts of this work? It sounds like there's a lot of positives that come out of this profession. Like you're able to maintain friendships with millionaires. You're able to work on the sides with editors from New York Times. You're able to interview players, even if they can be a little sassy, you're still able to interview and talk to them. Like, I feel like this is an experience that not everyone can have. Would you say that's your favorite part of the work, or is it something else?
It was always like the bell would go off when something good happened to us and what we were trying to do. And we don't know if someone was watching us up there or whatever, but they did have us focused, and we were able to do things that nobody else our age could ever try, much less get done. And so we felt very fortunate in that way, that we had resources to talk to. Like you say, the guy from the New York Times, the guy from the New York Post, Daily News, we talk to them on a nightly basis. Tell us how you did this. Tell us how you're doing that. And it just all came together. So every step of the way, a interesting, if not phenomenal thing would happen to us. And it was so much fun to kind of live in that world where we wake up every day and not know what was going to happen next. For instance, when you are a 14-year-old and you go up the elevators to one of the larger buildings in New York City and you have an appointment with the vice president of marketing for Nike shoes, you wonder, how the heck did I fall into this? And it was by a phone call. That's all that happened. I got on the phone with the vice president of marketing from Nike shoes, Nike sneakers. And I said, "We have this great product. We'd really love to show it to you. I think it would be great for your market. You know, we haven't gotten into the Nike market yet, but we'd love to. Can we make an appointment?" And he said, "Well, who are you?" I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm the kid that was 14 and I called you up and told you that I'm running a sports paper in New York and need some advertising." He said, "Okay, come see me in a week." And so I was invited now to see this guy and to be with this guy and spend time with this guy. And Richard and I went up and we were asking him questions and he's giving us advice. He's telling us what to do and what not to do in this business. And it was just incredible to be sitting with one of the biggest marketing guys in the world. And he's giving us advice. And we're like sponges, yeah. And we're taking notes, yeah. And at the end of that meeting, he said to us, "Okay, now let's get back to the ads you want me to buy. What do you want?" And I said, "Well, we have a full page ad here. We'd love to have you buy a couple of those." He goes, "How much is it?" And I said, $250 for a full page ad. And he said, "Put us down for two. Put us down for Coke and put us down for the Nike." And I was like, again, how does that happen? How does that happen when a kid gets to go up to the guy's office in the 93rd floor of the building? How does it happen that we walk away with $500 worth of advertising dollars. And this happened in 1973. So the amount of money back then was much more than it would have been in these days.
Yeah, at age 14, I was struggling how to make pancakes. Um, so, wow. Would you say what are the best opportunities today? Because it seems like I don't know from experience, but it seems like it's kind of more competitive in this day of age to achieve such a honestly like impressive goal. Or I guess what do you think are the best opportunities for students?
Well, now I think there are so many more opportunities than they were back then. And the reason is technology. When you have equipment that could fit in a little lunchbox practically, and you could take that equipment to a sporting event, and you can open it up, and you could for 2 hours broadcast into that equipment and record what is happening on the field, and then take that tape and you bring it to people that own radio stations, own TV stations, and you ask them if they would be interested in starting a 1 hour highlight show for the volleyball championships of the Pennsylvania, and you start to come up with ideas that may help their marketing as well as help your career. So again, you look for opportunities because of the marketing, because of the digital available to you. And then you take those opportunities and you develop something that somebody else might have interest in or want to pay you to do. And that's kind of where it all goes. Digital is opened so many opportunities. And it's kind of funny because way back when, I was very proud of the fact that I was the only sportscaster on national television back then. I was the only one that was chosen for that honor, whatever it was. So nowadays, when kids are taking their microphones and their little lunchbox equipment and they're recording things and they're doing things live, it's like, I had to work so hard to get on TV, and now anybody with a microphone and a little box can do it and does it. And it's like, that's a little disappointing to me because I work so hard and they're kind of getting it right away. But it's the digital aspect of the new world.
Just think of yourself as the pioneer. You're the pioneer of this work. Everyone else has it easy, especially with TikTok. Ugh.
Yeah, I don't know very much about TikTok, but I understand it's very big. And I understand there's a lot of dancing that goes on TikTok. But other than that, I don't know a heck of a lot.
It's just like TikTok. I don't know if anyone viewing uses it, but I find it kind of cringy, especially the dances, because people are just like, and that's all they do, and they're like, oh, wow, like do you want to sign for Duncan? Yeah, so I just find it absurd, but it's also like it's a good point you bring up. It's that easy for people to make a living. So I have a question. Do you still like stay in contact with the VP of Nike or anyone within the Nike industry?
Not so much within Nike anymore. I kind of moved out of marketing and sales, and I don't do that so much anymore. But I did need to have that skill to get with the Nike folks and the Coca-Cola folks where I needed to get. But Richard and I haven't talked and seen each other for years. So he's gone his way and I went mine. But I do have a kind of an interesting story perfect for somebody that's in college or high school. Because again, it was a really unique and fun thing. So I'm in Detroit and I'm doing the sportscasting on the CBS TV stations there. I'm doing it at noon and doing it at 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock and so forth. So I get to go ahead and do these programs. And I was a pretty, I'm trying to find the right word, pretty much a difficult person to work for. Yet, when I'm doing my sportscasting, there are to be no mistakes. You better be moving. You better be getting me what I need. You better be right here when I need you. And that was my whole kind of way of approaching being on air, being on sportscasting. And the thing about being on air is, again, you can't waste a second here. You can't waste a second there. You can't go off and not come back. You got to be where we need you to be all the time. And as a result, I often got down on my interns. I got very upset with interns who were not doing what I needed them to do. And it was very stressful, Jackie. So if you want to do something that's not stressful, stay away from broadcasting. I will tell you this. So the people that I had working for me were not always the most competent or the most into helping me get what I need to get for that night. So that's a long way of saying this. My intern, back when I was in Detroit, was a young man who came to me one night, frazzled. He's shaking. His hands are shaking. And this was after a broadcast, after a sportscast on TV. And he's kind of going, can I talk to you for a minute? I said, yeah, what's up? And he said, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I said, what do you mean do this anymore? He goes, this is too crazy for me. I can't do this. I am shaken. I am afraid. I'm just, this is all not working out the way I thought. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but that's the job. If you're going to get in broadcasting, you need to learn that right now. And you need to get on the train here, because I can't wait for you to decide that you're going to be in broadcasting or not be in broadcasting. So let me know, Mr. Gilbert, are you going to be with me or are you not going to be with me? He said, I quit. I can't do this. So I said, okay, you're killing me, Dan. You're killing me. You were here. I needed your help. And now all of a sudden you're bailing ship on me? It's not right. It's not right to do that to me. And I needed the help. And he said, Mark, I'm sorry. I got to go. And so Dan Gilbert left. And I asked Dan, what are you going to do? He said, I don't know. I'm probably going to get into sales or real estate or something like that. And I said, okay, Dan, I understand. Goodbye. Dan Gilbert owns the Detroit Pistons. He owns Rocket Mortgage. He owns and came up with the idea for giving out mortgages over the air. And he is a gazillionaire, like Richard was a gazillionaire, all coming from me helping them.
Are you a gazillionaire as well?
Nah,
Okay.
once I got the money. I just got the fame.
You just got you're the fire starter for the gazillionaires.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So that seems like, I'm only in college radio right now, but I experience some of those aspects, even though like what I do is not as, I guess, intense, but it definitely is the industry where you really have to be committed and you have to put all of your life into it or nothing's going to come out of it.
Right.
But yeah, so I always say like I'm the type of person that enjoys chaos. So I think hopefully I'm good for this job, but it's definitely been a dream of mine since the 5th grade. I told my parents, I'm like, yeah, I want to be on radio. They're like, you mean a vet, right? I'm like, no, radio. They're like, doctor. I'm like, no. But yeah, so it seems like that can be like a mix of things. Like obviously in the moment, that's the least favorite part of being in this field, but also in the end, it's kind of like, well, you help someone find their way. You did mention earlier to me, like a few days ago, that the CBS network wanted you.
Yeah, well, that was one of the sad stories.
Oh.
They were the CBS at the time was just beginning to find interest in televising soccer nationwide, and I was working for the professional soccer team in New York, and I knew a little bit about soccer, and I was doing some of the play-by-play work for the soccer team, the New York Cosmos. That was the name of the team. So I am called one evening, and it's the producer for the CBS coverage of North American Soccer League soccer. And he says to me, I understand you do play-by-play for soccer for the New York Cosmos. I said, yeah, I do. I've been doing that for a while. He said, well, we're beginning to look for someone for our nationwide coverage. We just need, one person to do this, and you have been recommended. And I said, wow, I'm very flattered. I'd love to do that. And he said, well, when can I see your work? When can I see the next game that you do? And I said, well, it's going to be on television here in Manhattan, on the Manhattan cable. And you just go ahead and tune in, and you can watch what I do. And he said, okay, I'll do that. So a week goes by, the game is on, he's seen the game, I believe, and I'm not getting any calls. He's not calling me back. I call, he's not answering the phone. I call, he's not calling me back. That's when, Jackie, I realized that maybe I wasn't as good at this as I thought I was, and maybe I need to work on this a little bit, because you're 16 and you're doing this, and there's probably a lot of things you need to do beforehand. So he answers the phone one night finally, and he says, Mark, I'm afraid we're not going to be able to use you for this particular broadcast, but it was nice talking to you. Thank you very much. And he said, I have one thing. Can I ask you, do you have something with the word nicely? And I said, what do you mean? He said, every other sentence you used had the word nicely in it when you were covering the game. This Pele kicks it nicely to Canale, over nicely to him, nicely to that. And I kind of laughed to myself. I said, I do that, don't I? So it was a good learning experience, but there was no way I was ready for the big time CBS network.
Wow. Did you ever call them back hey, I'm ready for round 2 at all? Or
I tried, but they wouldn't answer the phone. I guess I was that bad.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that, it kind of reminded me of the time when I was interviewed for a Jimmy Fallon internship, and I thought I killed the interview. I was like, oh yeah, I'm ready for this. And the girl was just absolutely, over and over again. And then I get off the phone. I'm like, all right, guys, well, I'll see you in New York if you need me. And then 3 months go by and I didn't hear anything. And I'm like, it's coming. It's good. It's on its way. And then I get a default message saying, thank you for applying. However, we closed this application. I was like, I was putting in my head, I was jumping to conclusions, but I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be in New York. I'm going to have my own show with Fallon. But they didn't even accept me. So I think that taught me to definitely work on my interviewing skills and also speaking skills, because I think at one point I said I would like to work with a musician so that I can stalk them jokingly. And I don't think that settled well with her. So yeah. Sorry. That was bad. So I kind of wanted to backtrack because I forgot to ask you this question, but you were saying that you were kind of hard to work with. Did that give you the title as the most hated man in Central California, or?
Well, there's two different approaches. The most hated man in Central California came because I was doing the sports at the CBS station in Central California, and I was doing pretty well. People liked my stuff. They liked the shtick that I developed, and I was doing really well. Things are going across and no problems. Everything's fine. And I was named the Sportscaster of the Year twice by the United Press International. So I'm feeling good about myself and about what's going on. And then all of a sudden, my world turns upside down. I get a anonymous note. Someone has sent me a note and said, why don't you check into Fresno State basketball's team, which is cheating by scheduling too many practices before the regular season. They're not abiding by NCAA rules. And so me being a very curious kind of guy, I said, I need to look into this. So I called and I started calling around, and I would get people saying that they didn't know anything about it, nothing, and they'd kind of hang up the phone. And I continued on. I talked to people. I tried to find people that knew this story. And finally, I found someone to corroborate the story that they had been cheating and scheduling too many practices with teams that were Division III practicing. So I now am left with a very difficult situation. Do I go on TV and report that this basketball team, which was 7-20 first year and came around to be 20-7 the next year, and the people in the town are crazy over this basketball team? They are just nuts. They all wear red to the games, and they call it red out, and they're all of a sudden going from 7-20 to 20-7. Again, the city and the whole area is going crazy. So I finally get someone to corroborate the story, and I go on. I decide I'm going to report this on TV because it's wrong. They shouldn't be cheating. The athletes on that team know they're cheating. They know they're scrimmaging out of bounds, and they shouldn't be doing it. And so I'm going to make it my mission to tell the world. And I did. And you can imagine that the fans in this arena of the basketball team were not too happy with me. They were not happy at all that I told the world that they are cheaters. They were going to go to the NCAAs for the first time in their life, the first time in like 50 years. And when I made this report and when I went on the air and told people about it, they were suspended. They did not get to go to the playoffs, to the Final Four, or wherever they would have ended up. And people in the city hated me because I told the world that they had a team that was cheating and they should be appropriately dealt with.
Did you get any more spicy anonymous notes afterwards?
Yes, like calling in the middle of the night. My wife and I were woken up many times with somebody on the other end saying that, you better watch yourself, you better watch your back because we don't like traitors and things like that. And I had to every night, I knew there'd be a phone call and some idiot would be trying to rile me up. And that was how I became the most hated man in Central California.
Oh my God. So, well, two things. Did you sleep with a shotgun under your bed after that moment?
I let my wife sleep with a shotgun.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That's terrifying. I can't even imagine that happening to me. Like, I get freaked out if I get a robocaller on my phone. I'm like, where do they know? Like, do they know where I live? And it's just like a telemarketer saying like, we have a new product for you. So do you, like in this industry, do you get a lot of anonymous notes, especially when you are a reporter?
Well, not so much as a reporter anymore. After that, I kind of stopped trying to be the hero of the world. And so I moved on to other kinds of ways I could use with my skills and talents. And it wasn't necessarily in sports broadcasting, but I did do some things on the air that in retrospect, I wished I hadn't, because they turned out to be, I had made a mistake. Let's just put it that way. And the mistake was, I worked at a small radio station in New York, and my boss, who was called the program director, asked that before we go into the news at noon, please come up with a teaser or some sort of saying that will help keep people at the radio station until you go after the news, until you go to the news. It's called teasing. And I was a pretty good teaser, and they asked me one day, they said, hey, there's a series of things going on at the high school. They're giving shots to kids who want their flu shots. And so my tease that day was, they're shooting up kids in Huntington, more at 7. And I realized after my boss came in and said, what the hell are you doing? I said, what? He said, you're saying they're shooting up kids in Huntington right next door to us? Said, stop that. Stop that, and tell her that it was a mistake. Go on the air and stop that. So that was kind of one of the mistakes I made. And you make a lot when you're on, there's an open mic and you could say anything or say nothing, and you don't always say the right things. And I didn't on that occasion.
Was this directly after you were titled the most hated man in Central California?
That was before.
Oh, so it was like building up to it. Okay.
Right. Yes.
Wow. So that leads to my next question. How do you evolve and improve from from these little hiccups?
Well, I think those things are going to happen, but after you learn, don't do that. You're pretty well, you're now very cautious about the things you say and the things you don't say. And that was just, one of the examples of what I learned that day, to keep your mouth shut until you're ready. You thought it all out and then say it. And so, I did learn. I learned from that.
Yeah, I have a radio show about music history. It's called United We Jam. But
I like that name, by the way. I thought it was
thank you.
a clever name.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like I look into music genres all around the states, and sometimes like I'll read my prompt and it's like kind of like I'll accidentally say a swear word or something that could be offensive. So I'll like be in the middle of saying it and go hard. They'll be like, all right, well, anyway. And then I just play the music and it's really awkward. Um, but I can't wait because this week I'm looking into metal and I have a friend who's really into death metal. So I'm
Oh,
not
wow.
into metal at all, but
Me
it's
up
going to
for
be,
that.
yeah, a nice afternoon jam. Um,
What's your
but
favorite kind of music?
I grew up on country western music like Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, but now I'm really into jump blues, and there was another one I was really into. Yeah, swamp blues and just
Yeah.
country. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So swamp blues. What's his name? I forget his name. King Slim. That Slim Harpo. Slim Harpo. I just learned about him. He's cool.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is anything like that. But yeah, how about your favorite? You said that you were a DJ for a country station.
Yes. That
Yeah.
that was also kind of silly because I knew nothing about country western music, and but nevertheless, that was what they gave me. He said, "Here's what we have. We have a country western job available for you. Can you do it?" So you bet I can do it. By the way, never say no. You can't do something.
Hmm.
Never say no. You can't. You figure it out, Jackie. If they give you an opportunity, say, oh, "We don't want you for this, but would you like to maybe do some of this?" Say yes. I don't care what it
Yes.
is. If you're associated now with a broadcast entity, TV, radio, newspaper, digital, whatever it is, don't say no.
So definitely fake it till you make it, huh?
Well, I think if you talk to enough people and you get enough time to practice, you know, good things happen. Good things happen.
Yeah. Did you come out liking country western music, or were you just still kind of indifferent?
I liked it a lot more than I did when I first started because I knew nothing. I remember there was a country western artist whose name was Lefty Frizzell, and I
Mhm.
introduced him as Lefty Frizzle. And, and then people were calling it, doesn't even know the name of the guys that play the music. And I'm young, I'm new, give me a break.
Yeah. I had a country show actually, and I would play a lot of Marcus King Band, which is a southern rock band. And people would call and be like, wow, like I really like this music. And one day, a very famous radio DJ from WYEP called in, and I thought it was my friend just being like a jerk because my friends would just randomly call in. And he calls and he's like, hi, is this Jackie? And it sounded like my friend at the time. So I said, I hate you. And he's like, why do you hate me? You don't even know me. And I was like, who is this? He's like, oh, my name's Bruce Mountjoy. I like run the bluegrass station at WIEP. And I was like, we're friends now, but that was the most embarrassing thing in my entire life.
Wow.
It was really bad. But yeah, we would like share like bluegrass recommendations to each other. But yeah, he's doing good. He forgave me.
I
But
was surprised at how many people that I really came away kind of liking in the country western world. Um, and to this day, I even have a few of the records that I kept from back then that I did enjoy.
yeah, no, the thing about country western music is that it's very honest. Like you'll get like some of the country western music now that's like pop country, like I ate a whole tractor. But that's not a lyric. I don't know what that was. Um, but yeah, definitely classic country. What I like about it is that it's honest and raw. So yeah, but Jeff had a question. What are the best opportunities today in radio, TV, or is it all internet?
It's pretty much all internet because you have a bunch of people all trying for the same job now out of broadcasting, and that makes fewer jobs available. So going the digital route, if you can think of some things and do some things that are kind of creative and different, and something that would also help a businessman sell his product, because that's a real important thing, that if you can come up with some things like that, that would be the direction I'd say. Find out what the next great thing is on digital that you can participate in. It's a much shorter trip to do that than it is to be looking for something on broadcast that very few people are going to get. Very few people are going to get. So
Right.
it may not be, the best thing to hear, but it's the truth.
What do you think the future of radio and TV would be? Do you think it's just all going to be, I mean, a lot of it is already on the internet, but what do you think of like just the entire idea of radio and TV?
Well, people are being really, really creative with the digital programming that they're doing. It's really wonderful to hear all the kind of creative voices come up with different things, and they feel like they are broadcasters, and they are, but in a different way. So I would say be on the lookout for some neat things you could do in the world of broadcasting and radio and so forth, but don't necessarily think it's going to be your ticket to the moon. You have to understand that there's going to be digital opportunities where there won't be broadcast opportunities, and so you really kind of go every day thinking that's what am I going to do today that's different, and what am I going to do today that I can have some passion about. And if it means, Jackie, if it means that you're going to spend 40 hours looking for that answer to that question, that's what you need to do. 40 hours a week would not be unheard of. The more time and the more passion you show, the better chance you have of hooking up with something. Plus, you've got a nice personality too. That's part of it. You have to be able to find people that are going to kind of enjoy your personality and want to put you in a situation where you can display your personality. So those are the kinds of things I would recommend for somebody looking for their first opportunity.
That reminds me, how many hours would you put in a day when you were like a reporter or just at the stations that you worked at?
When I was reporting, it was at least 12 hours a day. And then there'd be weekends where I'd work another 8 hours.
Mm.
So if you add all that up, it's a lot of hours. But I loved it. I just loved what I was doing. And that makes it when you're working 8 hours or 12 hours, it doesn't matter because the time goes so fast because you really do enjoy what you're doing.
That's a really good way of putting it, because I feel like that it's definitely a job where you really have to enjoy because it takes, like, I don't want this to sound negative, but it takes over your life. But if you love it, then you're like, heck yeah, yeah, sign me up. But yeah, I think I definitely, I like that concept where you love what you do. So definitely I had to put in that memory box. But what else would you like to do if you could?
I'd probably like to spend 6 months being a lawyer, and that's all, because I'd like to experience it.
Okay. What type of law?
I'm not sure, maybe criminal law.
Mm.
I have an interest in it. I don't have a career interest in it, but I have a floating interest in it. And if the opportunity were such that somebody one day could say, "Hey, we need a lawyer, and it doesn't have to have any education or anything, and you don't have to really have gone to law school. We just need you to make the best argument you can of the case today," and I feel like I wouldn't embarrass myself.
Mm. I I would embarrass myself. I'm not good at debating. I'm very much of just like the mediator. Um, but yeah, no, that's really interesting. Why 6 months? Is it just like
That's
you
I wouldn't
think,
want to do it that long. I'd want to do it, have a taste of it, and then be done.
wow.
Move on to the next thing.
Mm. Well, that's all the questions that I have for you. If anyone out there has questions for Mark, we have about 3 minutes, or else we'll just keep talking. But I guess this is
Wonderful.
our interactive Q&A.
I want to make sure you come away with some important points. The word that starts with a P, what is that?
Persimmon. No, passion.
There you go.
Sorry, that was a
But
stupid joke.
no, I'm interested in making sure that, you come away with something from our conversation today. And the most important thing, you hit your nail on the head, is passion. You have to have passion for what you're doing or it will not work. You just can't just put your toe in the water. You got to dive in. You got to be in the water all the time and be ready for it. And, good things happen to those who work hard. And I really believe that. I don't think any of that stuff would have happened to me if I didn't come out every day and say, what am I going to do next? I might have done one thing and not this thing. I might have done that thing, but not this thing. But I was able to do it all because I had that vision that this is wonderful and I'm never going to let this go. And I worked with it till, 5 years ago. So from the start of my career till 5 years ago when I retired, semi-retired, it was important to me.
Were there ever any times when you thought, I can't do this anymore? Or like you had second thoughts?
Yeah, there were times when, those things happened that cause you to get annoyed with producers and get annoyed with your interns and so forth. I was a perfectionist on TV. If you made one mistake and you gave that mistake to me and I got it on the air, you're in big trouble because you didn't have the passion enough to look down what was important that night and what we should and shouldn't do. You didn't give me that information and you killed me. I can't do that. I cannot have you do that to me. And that's broadcasting. It's so narrow in its success focus. You just can't say, oh, I'm a superstar. Beyonce is a superstar. You're not a superstar. You could be a supporter to a superstar, but there are opportunities out there to do things that make you feel like you want to do this for the rest of your life.
That's really good advice because I feel like when people come into this field, they think that, oh, I'm the center of attention. It's no big deal. But definitely putting your, like, understanding your place and your job is definitely the biggest part of really carrying it out correctly. Um, but that's all the time that we have. We reached 1 p.m. But Mark, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about this industry. This was extremely helpful for me, and I hope it was helpful for everyone tuning in and listening. So, so that being said, everyone take care and thank you for tuning in. My name's
My pleasure,
Jackie.
Jackie. Good luck and we'll talk again. Take care.
Bye. Take
Bye.
care.